Hello. This is Jeremy Nguyen, myself. I'm a New Yorker cartoonist and illustrator, and I'm going to be leading a class today with Creatively. So here we go. All right, this talk is called What the Fuck Do I Do? Advice to Lost Artists from a Cartoonist Just Scraping By. I'm going to be talking a lot of different topics and showing some cartoons. So first up, we have this cartoon. Next time, use cold water. Here's a restaurant, and this waiter says, the chili peppers indicate how intense the negative reviews from white customers are. This guy's in an office, and he says, everyone here seems so friendly, but it might be all marketing. And the ghost of an artist comes and speaks to this painter, and he says, don't feel pressure to succeed in your 20s. I didn't find success until my death. And that's kind of how I'm sure a lot of us feel, that we have to be super successful right out of the gate. It's a horrible feeling. So I have a poll. Creatively will launch in a second. When you look forward at your career, what do you see?
All right, we're gonna launch it right now, Jeremy.
So some of the options are F, I'm good, just saying hi. U, I have clear goals that I want to reach. C, I vaguely know what I want to do with my career and I just lack confidence. Or K, I do not know what the fuck to do or where the fuck to start.
We'll share the results in a couple more seconds. We'll let a couple more of you add these votes in. We just saw a comment from Alex Rodriguez, who is a strong F.
Capital F.
Capital F in the chat. Thanks, Alex. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share the results with y'all.
All right, cool. Sounds like not everyone is completely directionless, but there are a lot of people who are not just saying hi. All right. So yeah, I feel like there's a lot of gatekeeping in the industry for illustrators, and I'm sure that there's a lot of gatekeeping in other creative fields. Hopefully this talk will find a way to either circumvent gatekeeping or find your own path, and maybe even knock it down. Yeah, it'd be great if, all of us could be super successful freelancers and coast right out of college. I'm sure you know a few colleagues or friends of yours that are doing super great. But, artists are born misfits. Not all of us can get scholarships and awards and representation and agents and everything right out the gate. So some of us are going to have to find our own paths and make our own waves. Yeah, it'd be great just to be able to surf freely with knowing when all the waves are coming at you. But I think most of us are like this. We don't know where to go, where to look, if there's even waves in the forecast. So, we really literally have to make our own waves. So what the fuck do I do? Over the years, I've learned that there are three things that I do. And those three things are: one, make a lot of stuff; two, make a lot of good stuff; and three, make people pay attention. I'm sure a lot of you make a lot of stuff, and you do make a lot of good stuff. And number three is the kind of the thing that is a challenge, putting yourself out there and even just trying to find the right people to look at your stuff is a challenge. So we're going to start with number one, make a lot of stuff. The more art you make, the more skills you learn. Number two, you will use those skills in future projects, even if your projects fail or you don't enjoy the work that you're making, you still will build a skill set. And you will have ideas that you can come back to later. That's why keeping a sketchbook is nice. You can always look back at your sketchbook and refine some ideas. And yeah, you might end up with good stuff. It's serendipitous the way we work. So number one, make a lot of stuff. When I was in college, I did stand-up comedy. And that was, I went to an art school, I did stand-up on the side, and I had a best friend who also did stand-up. This is us on the set of a TV pilot another film student was making. It's the only photo we have together, pretty much. And we did a lot of shows monthly. We did some open mics, but I made a bunch of posters for every single show that we did, hand drawn, scanned them in, figured out lettering, and just, played around figuring out my own personal style. Yeah, I even made, color versions of some of those posters after a while. And yeah, the more art you make, the more skills you learn. When I graduated college, I was lucky enough to, I bounced around to a few part-time jobs until I landed at a comics company called Comixology. And I actually even, it was a cool startup that I actually got my friends to come in and work on my team as well alongside me. So there's some art students, SCAD students on the left there, as well as some of our professors that came to visit us. We've also gotten to go to San Diego Comic-Con, and that's George R.R. Martin on the right. And it was a great company, a great place to meet other artists from other art schools and other comics lovers. And, we all wanted to do freelance illustration on the side and have our own projects. I was also fortunate to go with the company to Angoulême, France. It was always a dream of mine in college to visit this comics town in France that puts on a yearly festival, and I did like a diary comic for them. And yeah, I took on a lot of weird art jobs. I've done illustrations of, people's family members for Christmas and birthdays, and I drew Michael Che and Nimesh Patel, these comedians that were up and coming and needed a poster for their own personal comedy shows. Yeah, I've done a lot of weird editorial illustrations for tiny, tiny little style blogs. I even worked on an animated, an animated show pilot. I found a guy on Craigslist who needed a character designer, and he wanted to make a Latino family guy, basically. And sure, yeah, I went to New Jersey every week to work on this show, making character turnarounds and background art. It was a weird project, but it didn't go. It was something that I learned, though. I did some caricatures of the beard and mustache championships that were held in New York. And I got to work with some other artists, friends of mine, to draw caricatures on audience members in the lobby of the Kings County Theater. Another weird gig. But that kind of gig led to doing bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, where we brought in the same idea. We let the attendees choose from a template, and then we would draw hearts on their eyes or, superhero powers over their heads. It was a lot of fun, and I don't know if I would do it again, but it was a great opportunity at the time when I needed to work. I also grew up in the time of Tumblr and fan art, and I'm not a Doctor Who or Sherlock watcher, so I didn't do a lot of fan art for those shows. I was into Mad Men, and I tried my hand at doing Mad Men fan art, And it was cool to make. I don't think fan art is for me. I'd rather make original artwork and comics. But it was fun to play around in this format. Yeah, you could do so much more with your talents than Bible fan art. That's how I felt. And I was at my day job and I kept working on my portfolio. I made a piece like this. This was my attempt at a New Yorker cover to have that, New Yorker cover sense of irony. And it was great practice. I've had it on my portfolio for a long time. And then, yeah, you might end up with good stuff sometimes, something like this. And then April 2014, I published this cover with the New Yorker. And haha, JK, I did not do this cover at all. It was, I photoshopped this logo and the price tag on it, and photoshopped April 1st, 2014, as an April Fool's joke that I posted on Facebook. And a lot of people fell for it, I guess. And a lot of former classmates, high school teachers congratulated me. And I sat around and felt really bad because, I didn't get a New Yorker cover. And I felt like I was the one who got the April Fool's joke pulled on, um, and felt like an April Fool. Yeah, I mean, why would the New Yorker publish me? Why would I think that this is something that's absolutely possible, plausible, and something that would ever happen to me? Um, yeah, and I just kept doing it. I kept, attempting to illustrate New Yorker covers. Um, this is the idea is a Christmas cover. Obviously, this one was rejected as well. But, years later, I took it and repurposed the art as Christmas cards, and I sell them on my web store. So yeah, you will have ideas that you can repurpose later. Let's talk about my comic Stranger Than Bushwick. I moved to Bushwick in 2011 when I graduated, and I started following this neighborhood news blog called Bushwick Daily, run by Katerina Hybanova, and she's sitting there in the center, the blonde. And there were a lot of cool writers and a lot of photographers, and they talked about neighborhood news like board meetings, community board meetings. They talked about housing developments that were being put up and some of the activism that was going into fighting them. And then they also talked about stuff like new coffee shops and restaurants. Um, you know, Katerina is here doing a web series with one of the Bushwick Daily writers, Dr. Lisa, and I did the background art for her web series there. I was just trying to pick up odd jobs, and Bushwick Daily didn't have any illustrators. So whenever they ran interesting features and columns, I asked if I could illustrate for them and build up my portfolio that way. So yeah, we talk about brunch and dating in Bushwick. I've done pieces about surviving in the summer in New York. And there's been an expose on, or like an opinion piece on an art show that only showed 300 dick pics. And yeah, I built up my portfolio by doing a lot of interesting work with them. And Katerina was really impressed by it, and she asked me if I wanted to write any articles for them. And I'm not a journalist. I do absolutely admire journalists and writers. They do amazing work to tell the truth, and I'm just not great at reporting facts and even doing the back end work of fact checking. But I pitched her an idea of, hey, maybe I will do some comics for you guys. And so this is where we talk about lesson 2, make a lot of good stuff. Yeah. So yeah, when you make a lot of good stuff, you'll build confidence. it will be easier to advocate for yourself and sell your work and get other people to believe in you. People will notice you when your work reflects who you are and your sensibility, and uh, com- you know, being completely honest and true to yourself as an artist is one of the best things you can be, and making good work will get you there.
Hey, Jeremy, quick
Yeah.
question. We before we get to this seemingly murder scene photo, but how would you define good when you say make a lot of good stuff for the artists that we have in the Zoom room?
Yeah, so this lesson, sometimes I call it make a lot of undeniably good stuff. So, and that's kind of objective, but also undeniable is that, you're getting feedback and people are going crazy for it. You're going crazy for it yourself. You know, Sometimes when I draw something or a comic, uh, you know, I myself can't fall asleep because I'm looking at my original artwork. And I know this is going to sound crazy, but it's like, I'm like, I'm so good. Oh my God, this piece, this is what's going to project me to the next level. If you get that feeling from your work, then I feel like that's undeniably good. It just like, why else would you be creating art if not to, you know, feel or be able to express yourself that deeply? Um, I'll go through and talk about how I found that honesty with these comics.
Great,
Um,
thank you.
yeah. So yeah, this was one of the apartments I lived in. It's like a windowless room in a nice loft, but I didn't have a lot of stuff to my name. Um, yeah, and living in Bushwick brought in a lot of surrealism in itself, including a comic I drew called "Signs Your Landlord Wants You to Move Out." He deliberately tore up your floorboards. He put up fake eviction notices. When you close your blinds, you see blueprints to his condominium plans. He has replaced the hot water with ghouls. He has employed men to catcall every tenant in the building, and he sabotaged his own face to make rent days scarier. Um, I would go to rooftop parties and I would make a comic about uh, the bingo charts of what happens at every rooftop party. I did a comic called Sexiest Bushwick Halloween Costumes and picked up things that I just saw around the street. This one is a truly autobiographical comic called That Wasn't Your Metro Card You Swiped, where I will be on autopilot fishing into my wallet to pull out anything, and it will never be my MetroCard. I'm just heading to work and I don't even think about it. And I'd pull out, my health insurance card or a pamphlet that explains the history of moleskin or your table number from a restaurant. And I injected a favorite game of mine that was trending a few years ago called Bespoke Products Found in Bushwick's Bespokemon Go. And I wrote insane comics about Pokemon, including my favorite joke, which is at the bottom, Ma Champagne. Drinking enough glasses will ensure you get seismically tossed. Yeah, this neighborhood was an insane place to live. There's a lot of artists doing their own things that it's super inspiring to see. Lots of weird food to eat and installations to go to. And I was mad about this place and I had to make comics about them. There was this viral architectural rendering that went viral that people hated because this is the Williamsburg waterfront, and everyone thought it was just a disgrace what these architects and developers are putting up. So I did a comic called New Condo Renderings for Bushwick and Williamsburg. And it says, white and rich. This was a favorite of mine. Then, I pulled stuff from the news. Gothamist did a piece about a white crochet artist who put up a Moonshine Kingdom crochet piece on the side of a building that was actually private property. It was a home owned by a Latinx family. And she thought it was public property, but it caused a lot of controversy. And so I did my own version of this as a jumping off point, you know. Wes Anderson-y signs of gentrification. Numerous symmetrical condos and hotels are being built that look great in a wide angle shot. Or, you know, cupcake making white girls are getting birthmark tattoos of Mexico, Puerto Rico, and other Latin American countries on their cheeks. I sat in my room, that dirty, dirty murder room, and came up with hundreds and hundreds of jokes every week. And the results were incredible. I made about 80 comics over the course of 3 or 4 years and printed them as zines. And I took them to, you know, yeah, you will build confidence when you make good stuff. And I found out that they were good stuff when I would take them to conventions and shows and put them in front of the people. I would get a lot of feedback. I would watch at people as they laughed at certain comics. And I knew I was headed in a good direction when I sold a bunch of copies.
Hey, Jeremy, we had a question actually from Xander who asked if the comics got published. So it sounds like it did, but it was more of like you self-published, right? As like part of the hustle to like just get out there and continue to make work to be seen, right?
Yes. So those comics actually did publish on Bushwick Daily weekly. And, you know, I got maybe like $20 from them, or they bought me a beer that I didn't drink. Um, yeah, you know, it was just me putting out my own webcomic, and sort of like the thing about Bushwick Daily is that it was pretty hyper local, super niche, and I knew that other New York blogs followed them. And I'll talk about some of the art directors that hired me from seeing my work in Bushwick Daily.
One other comment too that we got from the chat was from Amy, and she says, if you haven't lived in a murder room in New York, have you even lived in New York?
Yeah, I don't understand people who get to live in high rises and call themselves New Yorkers.
Yeah.
Like,
apologies to those who don't live in New York and have to hear us cackling about it, but we will make this more universal for sure. But thank you.
Yeah, no, it's even if you don't live in New York, I think it's very valuable to, you know, be hyper local, knowing your audience, and having that support system around you. And for me, that was the Bushwick neighborhood. You know, I sold my comics in comic stores in Bushwick. Whenever I would go to bars, people would recognize me drawing or something. If I went to a restaurant, I'd bring a sketchbook, and I knew some of the restaurant owners, and they're like, what are you going to put in the comics this week? So it was a very supportive environment, and I got to do a lot of conventions and go around with a lot of friends to do that. Yeah, it will be easier to advocate for yourself, sell your work, and get other people to believe in you when you have great work. So yeah, I've done a lot of butt comics, and you know, they had a book release party for a print version, and I consensually drew people's butt portraits, and I've done body parts featured. You know, I did a lot of weird things, and other friends of mine noticed. So people will notice you when your work reflects who you are and your sensibilities. And this is Tony Wolf. He has his own zine called Green Point of View, which was about Greenpoint. Number 3, make people pay attention. So yeah, let's go through this. It's great to play the press. You can make your own press. They will not always come to you. And yeah, you should bring your art to life. You are more than just an artist who makes JPEGs. Bring your art to the real world. And distinguish yourself. Your voice and your perspective is what makes you valuable and sets you apart from other cartoonists. So I did this comic called New Bushwick Crayon Colors. There's subway platform green and open fire hydrant aqua. But as you go down, you see that people are signing lease papers manila and getting new furniture blonde. And there's a crayon called Gentrify White that I turned into an actual crayon. And I sold 50 zines with one of these crayons for free. And it was picked up by this blog, Bedford and Bowery, as well as Time Out New York. And yeah, it wasn't an accident that they wrote about me. I had photos taken by a SCAD friend of mine. I've had photos taken for this talk even. And it's just good to have that press packet because you never know when like a podcast wants to interview and they need a headshot, or you never know what they just need high def images and they don't always have a budget to send a photographer to you. I've even created my own U-Haul truck gallery. I rented a U-Haul truck and stuck artwork in it, and I got people's attention by buying these dollar store inner tubes, these brightly colored, insane things. And I bought a battery at Best Buy that I returned the weekend after, and it didn't even cost that much. But yeah, I hung up original artwork. I met these two spray paint graffiti muralist artists who were like, hey, can I paint the side of your truck? And I said, sure, why not? Yeah, and it was a hit. It got people's attention. I parked right next to a subway station, and it was a fun time and a fun weekend. It happened on Bushwick Open Studios weekend, where a lot of people come to the neighborhood to venture into art studios. And yeah, they put up a sign for me, and it attracted other people who were selling vintage clothes and jewelry. Yeah, and people started taking selfies with the inner tubes. It was kind of exactly what I wanted to happen. So yeah, bring your art to life. You are more than just an artist who makes JPEGs. You can be an artist in every part of the way you live your world, your life. And there was an art director who read my comics on Bushwick Daily. She got the Bushwick Daily email newsletter, and my comics were featured in those as well. And she was one of the first people to give me my big break in editorial. I did a ton of illustrations for them, lifestyle illustrations, automobile and food and drink illustrations, barbecues and grilling and summer. And yeah, there was a coffee app based in Bushwick that hired me to do some advertising for them because they wanted to capture a sort of Bushwick appeal. And, I wrote them a cute little insert for like a little pamphlet of how their coffee app works. And I've done some weird illustrations for a hip hop blog. I don't really follow hip hop gossip, but they wanted me to do illustrations on Meek Mill and Kanye West and Iggy Azalea and Drake. And I was like, all right, sure. And I don't know if they were that good, but my principles of making a lot of stuff shone through. And I was like, I'm sure I'll learn something from these. And I did. I started getting better at editorial, and some of the work I did for Extra Crispy, a breakfast website, turned out to be some of my best pieces of all time. I still get work from the illustrations here. The hip hop blog was named Watch Loud, and I think they're a little defunct now. And yeah, Extra Crispy was great. And I was doing all those drawings while I had a day job. So yeah, I felt like this woman who says, what podcast should I download to help me stay complacent and tethered to a job I hate? And that's when I decided to quit my job in November 2016. When Donald Trump was elected, I decided to go freelance. I always like to say that if I was going to die, then I'm going to die as a full-time freelance illustrator. And yeah, I took my principles with me to the New Yorker, make a lot of stuff, make a lot of good stuff, and make people pay attention. Yeah, the New Yorker wants you to submit 10 cartoons a week, and it was rough to come up with jokes for the next, basically year. I wanted to be a New Yorker cartoonist, and I had the goal that I would be published within the year. And I made about 10 cartoons a week, and by my 30th cartoon, I got an email from Bob Mankoff, the cartoon editor at the New Yorker, where he said, in the subject line, buying this cartoon, email calling to get the resolution specs, and then nothing in the body of the email. Just a scan of this cartoon. Remember when real men had masculine names like Oog and Bog? Nowadays, they're all named Florg and Smurg. And they published it pretty quickly in the Women's March issue, February 6, 2017. I was very, very lucky. And so, yeah, lesson number 2, make a lot of good stuff. I sold this cartoon to Emma Allen, the cartoon editor now. Sorry, these are saved. This is not based on personal experience. I made this cartoon about a fish getting swallowed up by plastic. And then I made a lot of work for their website, including the daily cartoon section, as well as a lot of daily shouts, which are long form comics. And I just tried to make as much as I could. You only debut in the New Yorker once, and you only have one first cartoon. So I tried to take advantage of being a new cartoonist in the magazine by really making a splash out of the gate. And lesson 3, make people pay attention. You know, it was great that I got in the magazine in 2017, right when Instagram was, you know, at its hottest, I guess. And New Yorker cartoons seem to do very well on Instagram. And Bushwick Daily did a feature on me about how I made cartoons for them, and now I was making cartoons for the New Yorker. Even Bedford and Bowery, the other blog that talked about my Gentrify White Crayon, did a follow-up article. And yeah, even my high school alumni magazine asked to do a piece on me. I thought they were just going to feature me with like other alumni saying, oh, hey, you know, Dominic Hamilton is now a business owner, and, you know, Grace Manelli is now teaching English in our department. And Jeremy Nguyen is also, I guess, doing New Yorker cartoons. But you know, when you have super high res photos, they will use them for cover art. It was very nice, and I hope my ex-girlfriend saw this.
Hey, Jeremy, we had a couple, at least a question really quickly before we move on to the next section, if that's
Yes.
all right. And Natasha asked, were you able to get paid for all those projects kind of prior to when you got to the New Yorker? Like at what, and then she said, or was it really about getting your work out there? So for example, like your U-Haul truck portable gallery?
Right, the U-Haul truck, that was, you know, that was all me, that I paid for that myself, and it only cost about $200 in total, including the dollar store inner tubes, the battery, the lights, renting the U-Haul truck for 3 days, and not paying gas because I parked it all weekend. So it was really cheap, and I had a full-time job to basically fund that for me. I did sell comics out of it, and I did have original artwork available to buy as well. I don't think I sold any though. And yeah, I did make prints of like the White and Rich condo development post comic, and that one actually did kind of sell a lot. Yeah, so, and then I got paid for the Thrillist work I did, the Extra Crispy work, and Watch Loud, the hip hop blog. And they paid about, you know, $150 to $200 at that time for per illustration. So it was kind of low, but you know, I didn't have the confidence of an editorial illustrator, and now I do. So now I demand much more than that.
Amazing. All right, I'll let you keep going, but we have a lot of great questions when
Sure.
we get to the end of the next one.
Sounds good. So yeah, make a lot of stuff, make a lot of good stuff, make people pay attention. And once you take care of that for yourself, you can move on and make some friends and make space for others. And then you've made it. I think that's all you really need to be successful. So let's talk about make friends. It's great to have friends. because you have a support system in your life. It's awesome to find people to celebrate and commiserate and complain about the industry with. And it's also great to share ideas, resources, gigs, labor, and all the fun. So let's get into it. Having supportive people in your life. These are other illustrators that you can take to gigs with you, give each other jobs. It was great working for Bushwick Daily because they were all writers and didn't feel competitive. And they all wanted me to illustrate their articles. And so having that support system that's outside of your creative field is a plus. And yeah, I've gotten to do shows with some really cool people, including Ellis Rosen, one of my good friends who helped me get my start at the New Yorker. I've done a comedy show with Karen Chi, who now writes for Late Night, and also Jason Adam Katzenstein was on this show with me as well. But I've also done some art shows with a lot of New Yorker cartoonists and illustrators that I adore. And it's great to, hang out late at night, put up frames, figure out how to put frames on brick wall together. Yeah, we've done a lot of interesting shows, and we've taken this particular art show to Mackay, Idaho, where I met one of my newest best friends in comics, Navid Madavian, who lived in this tiny town of 600 people. He bought a theater with his wife in this town. Yeah, it's great to find people to celebrate and commiserate with and do art shows with. They held an art show in the diner next to the theater, and this tiny town of Idaho came out. People from Boise, Idaho, the liberal professors at University of Boise were like, why is there a New Yorker cartoon show happening 200 miles north of me? It was funny. Yeah. And I've made a lot of great friends from this community of weird New Yorker people. It's super fun. And number 5, make space for others. This one is really new for me, so let's jump into it. Lifting up others helps us all. And you know the phrase, rising tide lifts all boats. It's great to make room for marginalized voices to be heard because we want that diversity, and it's always great to get a different perspective on every issue at hand. And of course, building a community empowers us all with knowledge, breaks down barriers, minimizes gatekeeping. You know, we can all find out which publishers are terrible people to work with, how much they pay. It's great to be able to share all that knowledge so that none of us find ourselves alone. So I put on a reading show where people can project their comics onto a slideshow projector and read them in front of an audience. I had on a lot of cartoonists that I loved and people that I thought deserved more attention. And also got to meet some industry veterans that whose work I want to meet these people, so invite them to a show. And I combined forces with a friend of mine who also had her own reading called Panels to the People. And we held it in this vinyl store comic book shop in Bushwick that was about 6 blocks from my apartment at the time. We used to hold it at a bookstore in Greenpoint. Oh, excuse me. And in the little basement downstairs. But we found a nice home for it in Bushwick, and this is what it looks like from the reverse angle. And we did it monthly. It was kind of nuts. We had New Yorker cartoonists on. We had students on the same bill as their professors. We had people who had never made a comic before in their life. And we had people who had ginormous graphic novel careers. It was our way of getting very introverted artists out of their home, including myself, to actually socialize. This was all the socializing I did for the month, basically, all in one night. And then we would return back to our studios to slog at our work again. So yeah, make room for marginalized voices to be heard. We scoured Instagram and Cartoonists of Color databases to find diverse panelists every show. we held the show at a gallery that I put on that I'll talk about in a second. And yeah, I put on this gallery show called Asian Babies that I co-curated with my colleague Amy Huang, who is one of my favorite New Yorker cartoonists of all time. You know, she was just entering her full-time freelance career after many years in design and architecture. And it was incredible to put on a show for and with all my Asian colleagues at the New Yorker. There's only 10 of us, which is crazy in the entire almost 100-year history of the magazine. And it was just fun to be able to work alongside Amy for weeks on end and learn everything that she has learned over the years. And I never probably would have gotten that opportunity unless we had this project that put us so close together all the time. We also featured baby photos of the of the artists. And yeah, here are some of the cartoonists that live in New York. There's myself, Christine Mi, Amy Huang, Su Rin Lee, and on the right is Joanne Kwong, who owns Pearl River Mart, which is the Chinese home goods store that hosted our gallery show in the loft upstairs. We also had an artist featured who was born in 1920 and had one cartoon in the magazine in 1965. His name is Monroe Lung, and he's not alive anymore, so his family sent his work to us, and his granddaughter and great-grandson showed up to represent them. And yeah, we have his Asian, his baby photo from 1920 next to his great-grandson. It was super fun. And a lot of our white counterparts at the New Yorker came to support us, and even they were blown away that there had only been 10 East Asian cartoonists that we know of in the magazine. And, you know, it was held in Chinatown, and a lot of the community rallied behind us, including New York One. They sent a film crew to interview us for a story. And I like to say that we installed this desk. This is my actual art desk that I used for years as a selfie station for, I intended it for kids, but also adults were able to take a selfie and sign the guest book. And my intention was, there's this great Alan Yang quote where when he won an Emmy, I think he said, Asian parents should stop buying pianos and violins for their kids and start buying them video cameras. And I love that sentiment because there needs to be more Asian artists in the world. And I hope that families can see their, the futures of their bright little babies in this show and see that there are vital, relevant Asian cartoonists making great work. So we want to build community. We want to empower everyone with this knowledge. We want to break down barriers. I hope to do a show featuring a lot of the other voices that aren't in the magazine as much, because all of this will minimize gatekeeping. So how are we doing on time? This is my time check.
Hello. I told you I would do this or this. We're kind of in between. I do have a lot of great questions for you. If you want to tackle some of that, we can see if we want to continue on. All right, cool. I will go back to my logo C. One moment. So we had Lindsay ask, regarding your perspective on your art, when submitting a mass amount, quote unquote, of cartoons on a monthly basis, like you were with the New Yorker, how many or what percent of the submissions do you feel are absolutely amazing, undeniably amazing? Do you feel like you are at 100% every time you submit?
Absolutely not. I doubt myself every single week. I do not think that I am at 100% every time I submit. And that's what I learned from doing Stranger Than Bushwick, was that I was like, every week was a slog to comb Instagram and Twitter and my own diary to be like, what can I make this week a comic about? And that was like training grounds for the New Yorker, because the New Yorker, they want you to submit at least about 5 to 10 cartoons a week. And that is because, Bob Mankoff said that 1 out of 10 things in life don't work out. And we have discovered that our percentages are probably lower than that. Yeah, it's hard to find that one gem, but that's why we go into the mine to find these gems. And we're going to find, 9 dirt clods and maybe a tiny, tiny little amethyst. Who knows? But, the reason why you make so much work is because there will be that day when you're in the mine where you find that giant, giant gemstone, that giant diamond. And that's sort of the name of the game is combing the backs of your mind to see what else is in the back of my psyche that I can bring forth into a New Yorker cartoon that is completely original and interesting, and resonates with the general audience. So yeah, I'm definitely doubting myself every week, saying, "Oh, they're not going to buy anything this week." And yeah, my hit rate is I try to sell once a month. There's 4 weeks in a month, and if I could sell 1 a month and 12 a year, then I'm good for the year. And so that's why I try and take a lot of work outside of the New Yorker, because it's a competitive field and it's not a sustainable place to make money. So unless you're like incredible and an auteur, not all of us can surf peacefully on every wave that comes. We kind of have to work really hard to make things happen for ourselves.
Thanks, Jeremy. Amy, who is talking about the murder room, asked, have you had a lot of success in negotiating rates? They're all so low.
Yes, I attribute my girlfriend as someone that I bounce rates back forth with. She's an incredible, advocate for asking for more money. And then I'm always like, I don't know if they'll let me take on that much money. And then she's like, just ask. And then I do. And then they're always like, okay, yeah, we'll give you this much more money. So she's just always right. And, yes, the rates are low. But I think as you build work, as you build better work, as you build rapport with your clients, they start to refer you to other people who, even better clients. So then you can stop taking on those, small gigs that don't pay enough. I've completely, stopped having to do portrait art, which I did a lot of in my early days. And yeah, some of those gigs, I don't think I'll ever work on an animated show that has no green light to it, because it just doesn't pay anything.
Amazing. We'll do one more question. Let's try to squeeze in one more section, and then we'll get to the rest of the questions.
Great.
Mary Caitlin asks, how did you create time to build your portfolio outside of your day job?
So my day job wasn't super demanding, but we did have long hours. So, I kind of drew on the job sometimes. I would use their scanners at work. But, I am a night owl. I would stay up until like 2 in the morning. Even now, sometimes I stay up till 4 just because I do better work then. And, I I don't have a social life. I tell people I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't really party. My idea of fun is doing the work, because I knew that in the end I would hopefully get to pay it off. So that was my adamant goal in life, was to, not only do great as an illustrator, but I also had a chip on my shoulder of, I'm going to prove my Asian parents wrong and say, hey, I'm going to make a living at this. So I think having that, looming over my shoulder was something that helped me find the time to make artwork. You know, whenever I did socialize and go to brunch with people, I would bring my sketchbook and I would write down jokes, and I would write down things people said or did or ate and drank. And I was taking notes when I was hanging out, and I'm sure it might have annoyed people, but I was like, this is my process. This is how I write. I'm not going to remember this joke later. So I'm just going to do it, and you're going to have to deal with it. Yeah. And anytime I did make social plans, it was always like, I'm going to this museum. If you want to come, show up. If, I have this whole thing that it's like, New York is too busy and too crazy for me to sit around and wait for friends to be late. So it's like, I'm going to go to this museum. If you want to come, I'm going to be in this section at this time. It's just one of those things that you learn. You're on your own schedule and you can't wait around for other people. So I found it very easy to find the one or two people I could rely on, make them my social life, my social world, and then the rest of the time I spent making work.
Thanks, Jeremy. Let's see
Yeah.
how fast we can get through one more section, because I feel
All
like
right.
people would love to hear it, but we have about 9 more amazing questions. So let's see what we can do.
Yeah, we'll cruise through this. So yeah, those are most of my lessons, but what else can you do? I want to share this section of some of the weirder gigs I've taken on since then. And, I've done some parenting books, which is so strange. I'm not a dad. I don't want to be a dad. And I was asked by this company to do one book for them called We're Pregnant. It's kind of a book for new first time dads. And they wanted to reach like that skeptical dad who doesn't know what to do. And maybe I gave off that vibe somehow when I showed them, or when they saw pieces like this in my portfolio. Like I said before, make great work. You never know when they're going to come in handy. This had been in my portfolio for maybe uh, 8 years, and it's gotten me a lot of work, and it got me this dad book series gig. They also saw a New Yorker cartoon I did that was published, and it's this hostess saying, "That table is yours once that party decides to move to the suburbs." They really wanted that ironic, sarcastic, skeptical humor of parenting injected into the book. And so I did an illustration like this for them, where a dad is wearing street art, like a streetwear, and the brand is I'm Sorry. This happens to a lot of parents on airplanes, and I have witnessed parents giving candy to passengers with cards that say, "Hi, my name is Aiden, and I'm 1 year old, and I'm going to be a mess, and I'm going to be loud, so I'm sorry, here's some candy." And that's where that stemmed from. I've also done some like heartwarming illustrations for them, as well as scientific illustrations about fetal development. It really ran the gamut. And, as the books went on, I got to inject more diversity. I have a lesbian couple in a dad book. It's great. We're redefining what dads are. I have this implied single dad on the other side of this panel. And yeah, I'm actually still currently working on some of those books. I have deadlines this week. And, these have gotten me a lot of jobs in the parenting field. So it's a little strange, but I'll take it. I've also gotten to work in board games. You guys remember my funny best friend from college? He graduated with an animation degree, and he absolutely hated it. He sat in a dark room with no windows, lighting celebrities' faces on Guardians of the Galaxy and Age of the Apocalypse, X-Men Age of Apocalypse, and he didn't really get to do animation stuff. But he's an avid fan of board games, and he illustrated, designed, developed this game called Cat Lady, and he sold it to AEG, Alderock Entertainment Group, and they sold a lot of copies of this game. So much so that they asked him to make expansions, and also come on as an in-house full-time art director. And as an art director, he hired me to illustrate this board game when another artist dropped out. It wasn't a game he designed, but he helped develop it and art directed it. And, you know, we had a very short amount of time to get this done. So I pitched them the idea of, hey, I'm illustrating all these cards. Why don't we put that gorgeous card artwork onto the cover to cover more ground, and I don't have to draw as much for the cover. And he was like, sure, it looks great. Let's do it. Why not? And that's what it looks like. And they took it to Penny Arcade Expo in Boston, PAX East, and it was a nice, cool billboard for their playtesting. And I don't know why this guy has so many Sharpies. So when Josh created his second game, Santa Monica, it gave the company a lot of confidence in me to illustrate it. It's a tableau building game where you're building your own boardwalk and you have these beach cards and street cards. And, you know, this was almost like, it was a great gig. They paid fine and well, but I did put a lot of my personal life into this as well as Josh did. We both sort of put a lot of our personalities into this game because I knew that this was going to be my calling card for more games in the future. I flew down to Santa Monica and we stayed in a house together. We went down to the boardwalk and took pictures. This photo of a sign inspired our logo of the game, basically. We saw pizza restaurants that we were like, this is a perfect touristy pizza restaurant. How about we illustrate that and give it a touristy California name? We put in a lot of cool visual jokes like the California crust, and the state of California is the actual pizza crust of the building. It was great. It was so super fun. You know, we made observations about pigeon spikes and how they were everywhere because seagulls were landing on all these buildings. So we created a card just to have this joke of a honeymooning gift shop called Lovebirds that doesn't actually love birds with all the pigeon spikes they have on their building. Because I guess there's some condemned building next door that pigeons live in. We noticed how this game had to not look like a ghost town. It had to look lived in. So we took photos of stickers on at the skate park and towels hanging on the sides of the railing. And we tried to put as many details to make this game really, really sing and really come alive. And yeah, we stayed in this house that had a lot of board games in it. It was basically the AEG offices, and we slept, ate, drank, lived Santa Monica. He would have his play testers come in and play on that big giant table while I was doing the artwork on the patio and living it up, eating Lee's sandwiches and banh mi and In-N-Out Burger every day, basically. His artwork looked like this for some of the cards at first, and we updated it to make it really sing and really evoke what Santa Monica and California is all about. And, you know, we got to hang out like we were in college again. It was super fun. And, you know, I'm from California as well, so I got to put in a lot of myself and my history with going down to the beaches. We are extending, we're making an extension for this game, an expansion, and they're going to be double wide cards. And so there's like a card called Santa Monica Marathonica. We have all these dumb puns and dumb jokes that we stuck in everywhere. So yeah, everything else, I'll buzz through this real quick. You know, I've gotten to do furniture with my friend Aubrey, who I did panels to the people with. You know, we've gotten to do cool photo shoots and stuff and meet other fantastic illustrators like Stephanie Stillwell. I've gotten to do a window display for a South Korean clothing boutique. I've updated some of my old artwork into new artwork and sell these stickers on my shop. And I've taken a cartoon that is one of my most popular, and I, posted it online. And there was this young person who was inspired by it to sell their own data. They put a little pieces of paper of their data in their clamshell plastic packaging and sold them on the street. It was super inspiring to me because then I sold prints of this in my store and asked people to, if they wanted an original of their own data. So I kind of took her idea and remixed it my own way. And then, I just like to inject jokes everywhere. So on my store, you can buy this print for $30. Or if you work in tech, you have to pay an extra $30. No one's ever going to choose that option, but it's just a joke for me for when I do all this administrative store work. So yeah, be open to it all, find a mission statement of what you want to be doing, make a ton of it, make it good, and tell everyone about it. Yeah, and on the way, you'll make friends, and then hopefully you'll be able to make space for others. Yeah, the more art you make, the more skills you learn. You will use those skills in future projects. You will have ideas that you can come back to later. That's the best, is when you don't have new ideas, you can always look through your sketchbook and be like, all right, this dog in a suit of armor is coming back out into a New Yorker cartoon somehow. And yeah, you might end up with good stuff. And if you have a lot of good stuff, you'll build confidence, you'll be able to advocate for yourself and take on better work, sell your work, and get other people like art directors and editors to believe in you. And yeah, people will notice you when your work reflects who you are. Number 3, make people pay attention. Play the press. They're not always going to come to you. So you kind of have to go out, email people and say, this is what I'm doing. Here's some great photos. And here's the work I'm making. You are more than just an artist who makes JPEGs. Why can't everyone be an artist in their entire life? It'd be great, right? And yeah, your skill is great, but your voice, your perspective is what separates you. And if you have something interesting to say, people want to pay you money to bring that to them. And yeah, make friends, have supportive people in your life, find people to celebrate and commiserate with, have that support system. And yeah, bounce ideas. I have so many friends that we just text each other cartoons and jokes. And we're like, does this work? Is this funny? Does this guy's arm look right? And it's a lot of fun. And it's just a great way to keep in touch with my cartoonist friends too. And yeah, make space for others, lift others up, make room for the marginalized voices, including your own, make room for your own marginalized voice, and build community so that everyone can share all this knowledge that you've learned. Hopefully I am imparting some of that to you now I'm truly a hater of gatekeeping. I hate industries and places that do gatekeep. I know that people have to give awards, I guess, and that's a way of gatekeeping as well. So hopefully this talk has kicked down some of those gates. And thank you so much for listening. And
Yay.
yeah,
Thank you so much, Jeremy. We'll try to run through a couple of these questions for you all because I do think that they were all so great and thoughtful. So one of the ones I thought was really interesting is, did you find that, this is from Edwin, he asked, did you find that working for the New Yorker has influenced you to change your own cartoon style compared to before you worked for them? And if so, was it in a positive or negative way?
I would say it's mostly positive. I deliberately changed my style because, for one thing, the new style is very economical for me to draw quickly and make 5 to 10 cartoons a week with. So I deliberately chose a style that is a single line weight. I call it a deadline. And it doesn't have a lot of line variation to it. And I reduced faces to like dots and lines. But, a lot of my favorite New Yorker cartoonists of the 1960s and 70s kind of draw this way. And I wanted to evoke a sort of nostalgic feeling with these cartoons, as well as giving them a modern sensibility. Um, yeah, I really love, the cartoonists and cartoons that have come before me. And I hope that I am putting a spin on it that separates me from the cartoonists who are working now and even the cartoonists who were working back then. So yeah, it's a deliberate choice. I constantly think about style and how to improve it and how to make it more unique. But for now, I'm really happy with sort of the um, uh, middling mass appeal that it has.
Amazing. Another question we got is from Kathleen, and she asks, what does your writing or conceptualization process look like?
So yeah, part of another presentation I give is a look into my iPad. I have, like an image search section on one side and a note section on another side. So yeah, a lot of times I'll be looking at old cartoons for ideas, as well as what's going on in humor today. So that's like looking at Twitter, looking at Instagram, seeing what memes are out there. Um, and even just looking at photography websites to, if I see a scarecrow and I think, oh, there's not a lot of scarecrow cartoons, then I will try and play in that field. Images do a lot to help you. I'll go on walks to find ideas. It's a really arduous process, and I take naps a lot of the time just because I'm like overwhelmed with not having a good idea yet. So that can be grating and frustrating when nothing is flowing to you. I look at my own life and I go through my texts and see what has people been saying to me that I could turn into a caption. It's really combing every part of your life to find a joke that is part of my process.
Thank you. Another question received is from Elsa, and they asked, Jeremy, do you think someone without a formal background in art could be successful as a comic artist?
Absolutely. Yeah. There are so many New Yorker cartoonists who didn't go to art school. A lot of them they just draw as just something that they've done all the time. So, there are actually a lot less New Yorker cartoonists with an art background than you think. Um, and it's a lot of them are because they're really good joke writers, and they just happen to also draw. So, not every illustrator is a great joke writer, but there are comedy writers out there who have an affinity for, Mad Magazine and have grown up trying to draw comics and cartoons. So yeah, there's absolutely room for people who don't have an art background to succeed in this.
I agree with you, just based on how I actually even heard of you, which is through Sarah Kempa, who is
Mm-hmm.
a New Yorker cartoonist and does not have a formal background. She's an engineer.
She is great.
Another great question we got is from Christina. She asked, during the pandemic, have you felt like it's harder to get noticed for artists who can't go out and physically be present? Has knowledge of social media been key?
Oh yeah, I mean, whew, that is a tough question. I haven't really reflected that much on it. Um, I personally feel like I've gotten more work during the pandemic than any year before that. This year is like one of the better years for me freelance wise. Um, So who knows? Maybe all that physical event production stuff that I did was all moot, and people just want to see the work on Instagram and what you're doing. Um, I don't know if I can really answer that better than that for you, but yeah, social media has always been key, even before the pandemic. I'm I try to be as active as I can be on it, but you know, social media is weird, and I have so many crazy opinions about it. But yeah, it's been important for sure for all New Yorker cartoonists, I would say.
Thank you. Another question we received, and I think this might have been one of my favorite ones so far, is how do you handle criticism or harsh comments, particularly in the case of more political cartoons?
Um, okay, I will get some comments and criticism from usually the other side. So I kind of am able to brush that off because I know it's full of hate and it's mostly about them and not myself. So yeah, I can definitely handle criticism from people whose opinions don't align with mine. Um, you know, I have this mission statement of trying to be funny, in all aspects of my life, including the comment section of my own cartoons. So some of these people are just setting themselves up for a great joke, and I can't help myself. And what's really satisfying is, the validation I'll get from people who either come to my defense without me even commenting back on somebody's criticism. Um, my followers on my Instagram have been super amazing on almost policing the comment section for me. And then when I do go in and do a comment, it'll be nice when people like my retort or joke back um, to the person to the criticizer. And that sort of shuts them down after a bit. So I kind of welcome it. Um, Not to say that I want more of it. It's just that you know I don't let it get to me personally, um, because I know where I stand, and I know that the comics I do are um, what I truly believe. And there will be times I might make a mistake, and that's fair. So, if they can make a good argument where I've made a mistake in a cartoon, I welcome that as well. And yeah, I try and be healthy about it. It doesn't phase me. I don't know these people.
I guess semi-related. Leo asked earlier in the evening, Jeremy seems very socially engaging. What happens if you hate people and find the whole networking game a total nightmare?
Oh, I know networking sucks, but I try to hide behind stuff like panels to the people where, it is kind of a networking event, but disguised as a socializing event. If you truly, truly hate people, um, then I think you should share that because there are a lot of people who also hate people. Um, and there is a following for every feeling. Um, there are people who will absolutely be able to relate to you on that. So if you can channel that emotion, that feeling into your work, uh, then you know, then you can find success amongst those who also, I'm sure there's art directors who are like, ugh, I gotta email you. um, so yeah, I'm do as little as possible as you can, um, to minimize your anxiety when it comes to dealing with people, and only deal with the people that you do like, which I'm hoping there are at least like 3 or 4 people in your life that you can deal with.
Um, I have a couple questions I'm going to kind of combine. Do you have any book recommendations that you have found influential in your career growth? And who are your cartoonist idols?
Ooh, okay, all right. Yeah, I have a lot of colleagues at the New Yorker that will kill me if I don't mention them, so I'll try and keep it minimal. But everyone at the New Yorker is an A plus artist and cartoonist. I love them all. And I do mean that sincerely. They all have something to contribute. But just looking at my bookshelf now, I have Michel Rabagliati. He's a graphic novelist that I've been following since high school. I really like uh, this Japanese artist, Yu Nagaba. You can probably see how much he's influenced my work already. He is, doing some weird things and putting his work on products everywhere. And I truly admire that. I love Lisa Hannawalt. I love Eleanor Davis. Eleanor Davis is an artist who went to SCAD as well, and she has an incredible graphic novel and editorial cartoon career. And I'm a big fan of Trung Le Nguyen, another Vietnamese artist who has this amazing, amazing graphic novel that came out like within the last couple of months, I think. He's someone that I want to see more out of, and I can't wait for him to publish more books. But yeah, those are just a few of the artists on my shelf that I keep nearby.
Perfect. I'm gonna I'll ask this question and a couple of them that are like kind of more rapid fire. What's the average amount of time you spend on each cartoon, especially since you're trying to pump them out?
I spend about an hour to an hour and a half on a cartoon, and that doesn't even include the writing process. I'm actually more making less cartoons and selling more cartoons this year than ever before. Sometimes I'm sending in batches of 2, sometimes I'm sending in batches of 4. It's very rare these days that I send in a batch of 10 or more. So I'm actually doing a lot less cartoons, and basically just drawing the ones that I think are really good, and leaving some of the bad joke cartoons to not be drawn. It's just easier now that I've gotten the hang of it to curate myself, and censor myself. So yeah, I do a lot less these days with the client work that I have.
Haruka Aoki asked, does the New Yorker expect cartoonists to keep on submitting comics consistently every week or month, or do you think it's still professional to pitch every once in a while based on life?
Yeah, I think it's smart for a cartoonist to pitch a lot all the time when they're starting out. Um, I think there's this idea of consistency and but also improvement that they would want to see a voice that's shaping and forming right in front of their eyes. So I think it's really a good idea to go all in at the very beginning. And then after a while, once you've become like a regular contributor, some people drop off because, they're working on graphic novels. They have teaching to do that takes away from their time, or just, they've got other projects, and a lot of cartoonists actually drop off completely just because they don't like the grind of it, and the constant rejection that we get. So it's not completely sustainable for everyone. Um, but, it is one of the few places that allows you to have a voice somewhere. So people who value that will keep contributing as much as they can, even if it is one cartoon a week uh, or less. So I think it's valuable to go all in at the very beginning. But you know, I don't always submit every week.
Awesome. Um, Another kind of faster one, I think, is do you have an agent or are people reaching out from your work?
Yes, I do have an agent who represents me as an author if I were to ever pitch a graphic novel. He found me from my New Yorker cartoons. Um, and yeah, he only represents my literary work, so he doesn't find me work for, my parenting books that I only illustrate for. Um, yeah.
Amazing. We can round things out with just one last question. This is from Hyunjin. sorry if I slaughtered that. But it's freelance artists wear so many hats. I'm especially lost in terms of business. How do you manage yourself as a business without getting overwhelmed?
Yeah. So the great thing about working with some of the smaller clients early on is that, as I was trying to figure out my voice in editorial, I was also figuring out just how to read standard contracts and do invoicing. And as you build your client list, you'll find better and better tools that help with your workflow of invoicing and signing contracts. I used to print out every single contract I got and hand sign it, and then I was like, oh, I could just copy and paste a pre-made signature in Preview and slap that on, send in my W-9 as well. Um, and it's just like there's some things yeah, I kind of have to acknowledge sometimes how dumb I am, and remind myself that I'm not a smart person all the time. So it's just like it's constantly being skeptical of how things work and how things run that I apply to my art, where it's like, I'm very skeptical of people uh, not wearing masks, but I'm also very skeptical of, do I really have to sign this contract? So it is overwhelming. Um, but that's the thing about being an artist, is that you can be more than just somebody who makes great JPEGs. You can be somebody who's also great at advocating for yourself and knowing what you want in terms of your business, um, and how you envision your business is truly important and something that you can bring your art into. um, if you don't like the administrative work, there is a creative way to make that fun for yourself by, I don't know, finding the perfect app that does it all for you. Or I play around with the idea of putting cartoons on my invoices, just so that it zhuzhes it up and makes it a little funner than just a standard boring PDF file. So yeah, there's a lot of solutions. I think that's where your creativity is supposed to come in, and by solving those problems of that boring, overwhelming administrative stuff. And it is really just taking it, one document at a time.
All right, Jeremy, I think that's it. But thank you so much on behalf of the Creatively team for doing all this, sharing your like real talk about everything.
Yeah.
It was honestly amazing, and I see all the thank yous in the chat too. But
Yeah.
are there any closing remarks you'd like to share with everyone before we all sign off?
Yeah, thank you so much to Creatively for hosting this, and thank you guys so much. It was very overwhelming to see you all sign up for this talk, and I really do hope that the gates that I've kicked down, hopefully you can kick down for somebody else in the future. Yeah, and good luck, and good. Hope you all succeed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
All right, cheers. Thanks a lot.